Happy Spooktober, everyone! Urban legends are curious because they all stem from some sort of truth, right? From victims turned ghosts to portals to the underworld, here are 11 scary urban legends within the United States. Number 11. Cropsey. To put it rather simply, Cropsy is the Staten Island version of the Boogeyman, but there were some real events that led to the creation of Cropsy. It's believed that Cropsy was a man with a hook for a hand who escaped from a mental institution and went after children. When he wasn't out hunting, he would go and live in an abandoned mental institution known as Willbrook. At night, he would creep through the areas of New York and steal children off the streets, and then torture them with his hook for a hand. Parents would use the legend of Cropsy to try and warn kids against going out past curfew, and others would use the legend during sleepovers to try and freak out their friends. The problem, though, was that in the 70s and 80s, kids really started to disappear from the Staten Island area, and it made people start to wonder if Cropsy was more than just a scary story. It turned out later that the kidnapper was a rather disturbed man working at a school who decided to kidnap and kill children, but that didn't stop the rumors until he was eventually caught in 1987. Number 10. The Hell's Gate Bridge. This creepy legend comes from Oxford, Alabama. The legend itself starts in the 1950s. A couple was driving over a bridge when something went very wrong. The couple crashed their car off the side of the bridge and then drowned in the river below. Now, because of that accident, some locals believe if you drive in the middle of the bridge at night and then shut your lights off, you'll find your car inhabited by the ghost of the couple, and when they depart, you'll have a wet seat, symbolizing, no doubt, that they are still in the river. If you're wondering how it got the name, the Hell's Gate Bridge, the answer to that is the other part of the legend. Apparently, if you go across the bridge and you look over your shoulder about halfway through, you're going to find yourself looking into the depths of the underworld. Why? Not sure, but it's provocative, no? Anyway, ever since these two legends spread, people have tried to go to the bridge in order to find out if it's real. However, after a while, Alabama closed the bridge to cars, which was probably smart, and the bridge is now honestly falling apart, so even walking across it is not advised. Number 9. The Rats of New York. If you go to New York, you're going to hear a lot of stories about what lies in the sewers under the 5 boroughs of the city. One of the most pervasive urban legends out there is about the rats. Let's be clear, there are a lot of rats in New York. They're so numerous that you can be in your apartment or house and they'll find a way to get into them because everything is connected, more or less. However, this fear of rats, due to the fact that rats can carry diseases and are generally filthy, led to the widespread belief among the people of New York that there are 8 million rats in the sewers and beyond New York, which would obviously be a lot. Not sure how they landed on that number exactly, but this grew to such lengths that just about everyone believes that one day there will be more rats than people in New York. Here's the problem though. It's not really true. Yes, there are a lot of rats in New York, but at best count, it's about 2 million, not 8, which obviously is a stark difference. Still, that hasn't stopped many people from going and spreading all sorts of rumors and lies about these rats, including tales of mutated rats, and in the case of one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode, the creation of Rat King that can control all of the rats in New York. Thankfully, that was just a cartoon, because that would really be a damper on tourism. Number 8. The Kushtaka of the Alaskan Triangle. Alaska is one of the last states to enter the United States, and just as important, it's one of the most untamed states in the U.S. because of its vast wilderness. It's said that 5 out of every 1,000 people straight up vanish in the state due to its enormousness. However, when it comes to the urban legend as to why they vanish, people can get pretty creative, one of which is the legend of the Kushtaka. The tale of the Kushtaka comes from the Tlingit tribe that resides in Alaska, and according to them, the Kushtaka are evil spirits that reside in certain areas, specifically near the water. As the Kushtaka aren't just spirits, they're also shapeshifters, ones who are half man and half otter. A very curious combination, to say the least. These spirits will lure women and children closer to the water. Once they're in range, they'll grab them, steal their spirit, and then drown them, which obviously is a pretty horrifying way to go. Number 7. Slaughterhouse Canyon. If a place is called something like that, it's got to have a scary story. Slaughterhouse Canyon can be found in Arizona, and it does have a history of pain and apparently hauntings. This legend took place during the legendary gold rush in the 1800s, in which many people went from east to west in order to try and make a fortune and turn their lives around. In Arizona, there was a family that did this, and they lived in a shack in the canyon. They were quite poor, so much so that the father of the family would go and try and find food for them every night in order to survive. One day, the father did not return home. Maybe he was injured or killed by wild animals, no one really knows. And because the family relied on him for food, they slowly went mad with hunger. So much so that the mother grew tired of hearing her children's cries for food. So one day, she put on her wedding dress, killed her children, and threw them into a nearby river. She died soon after from starvation. It's said that if you were to go to Slaughterhouse Canyon today, you'll still hear the cries of the mother as she continues to be hungry and mourns the loss of all that she had. Number 6. Boggy Creek Monsters. There is a legend in Fouke, Arkansas of a creature called the Boggy Creek Monster, or the Fouke Monster. And the legend is so prevalent in the culture of the United States that it actually spawned 2 different drive-in movies, The Legend of Boggy Creek and Boggy Creek 2. As the story goes, in 1971, a pair of 7-foot-tall creatures came from the swamplands and walked around until they found a family set up in the backwoods of the area. The creatures then proceeded to attack the house and try to get the family inside. One of the monsters actually got its arm inside the house and tried to grab one of the girls, and when one of the boys went outside to see what was going on, the creatures tackled them. The only reason the family was saved was that their gunshot blasts scared them away. End of story? Not quite. In fact, the tales of these creatures continued on for decades, with many reporting large dark shapes moving throughout the area. In fact, in 2000, a bow hunter was in the region at dawn looking for game, and one of these creatures apparently found him first. When its hand got cut on the arrowhead, it screamed, and the hunter described it as thus: "It was louder than a car horn, and it was at my feet. It scared the crap out of me, so I started yelling back and cussing. It ran off, breaking trees and tearing down everything in its path. I sat there 15 minutes until it got daylight and I left. I believe that I scared it as much as it scared me." Number 5. The Charman. In 1948, a wildfire swept through California and burnt down a cabin where a father and son lived. The fire burned them severely, leaving horrible burn marks all over their bodies. This not only hurt them physically, but mentally. So much so that the son had a mental breakdown and killed his father. The police soon arrived, but when they saw the son was so badly burned that they honestly didn't realize he was alive. That pause allowed the boy to run away before they could arrest him. Thus, the legend of the Charman was born. People claim that the now grown-up little boy is still living in the wooded areas around California. He'll approach campers' tents if they're near his area, or he'll go and try to hitchhike with people, and if they allow him to do so, he'll attack them. Though it should be noted that one thing he doesn't do is set fires. Perhaps he's had enough of that. Number 4. Hannah Cranna. Hannah Cranna goes by another name in Connecticut, where she is said to haunt. She's known as the Wicked Witch of Monroe. Not the best title to have when you're likened to the Witches of Oz. People thought that the real-life woman, known as Hannah Cranna, was a witch when she was alive back in the 19th century. The reason for this is rather typical of the time period. You see, her husband had died through mysterious means. In this case, it was him falling off of a cliff, which they noted, rightfully so, doesn't just happen. The people of the town came to the conclusion that surely she must have bewitched him. They also went so far as to say that she would cast spells on people she didn't like, which I'm sure she thought about, given all the people were calling her a witch. Here's the twist in the urban tale. Hannah lived to be 77, and right before she died, she told the town people to not carry her body down by wagon to the cemetery. Instead, they needed to carry her on foot. They ignored this request and put her body in the wagon. But every time they tried to get along to the cemetery, the coffin kept falling off the wagon, forcing them to do it on foot. Then, when they returned to her house, it was on fire, as if a spell had triggered when she was buried. Number 3. Spook Hill. Sometimes, it's the story that helps sell the illusion that something not quite right is going on. And that's the case with the urban legend that is Spook Hill in Lake Wales, Florida. According to their legends, a ghost haunts the hill, and it's because of the haunting, strange things happen to cars that drive near it. As the story goes, there was a Native American chief who battled an alligator that had been stalking and hurting a local village. The two had a vicious fight, and in the end, both of them lost their lives. This is actually where the tale branches off, because it's unclear which spirit is haunting the hill and causing cars to move when they shouldn't be. Some think that it's the chief, wanting to contact someone, but others think it's the alligator, still trying to attack those who come near it. Either way, this magnetic hill is certainly rather unique, and it's said that if you go to the hill and put your car in neutral, you'll roll up instead of down. You don't, it's a trick of the surroundings, but it's still a popular location. Number 2, Lake Lanier. In Georgia, there's a place known as Lake Lanier, and it has a very interesting history, because right at the bottom of that lake is a town consumed by the water. Back in the 1940s, the government had gotten permission to uproot the towns that were inhabiting the would-be lake and then make a lake. But since destruction was too much of a hassle, they just decided to flood the land and let the water absorb the homes and everything else, which may not have been the greatest idea. Eerie incidents continue to happen on the lake. There are freak accidents and deaths that have reached a rather shocking number. In fact, in 2011 alone, there were 17 deaths. Those who almost died claimed that there were arms trying to drag them down, that the spirits of those who once lived in the town were trying to bring them down to their level below. Number 1, the Bunny Man. In Fairfax, Virginia, but also parts of Washington, D.C., there is a legend of a very dangerous and insane man. This is the legend of the Bunny Man. The Bunny Man has taken many forms, but the true 2 incidents that built the legend was of a man in the 1970s threatening to hurt people with a hatchet or axe around the bridge area in Virginia. The first attack was on an Air Force couple who had their front windshield broken by a hatchet and a man in a white headdress. The 2 disputed whether it was a bunny head or not. Then, 10 days later, a security guard found a man in a bunny costume chopping down wood. As the guard approached, the man said that if the guard got any closer, he would chop his head off. After, word of this spread. More than 50 incidents of a bunny man came over the police hotlines. The legend eventually grew by saying that people were constantly attacked on a nearby overpass by a man or spirit dressed as a bunny. The legend lives on to this day. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these scary American urban legends? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye!